Hey friends, welcome back to another adult faith formation video. For those of you who are new here, my name is Becca and I'm glad that you are here. And for those of you who are returning, it is good to be with you again. This is a series where Pastor Micah or I take one of the readings from the New or Old Testament in the upcoming week and we will talk about it. We dwell in it. Maybe there's a clear message or a nugget that's worth sharing. Maybe we just sit in holy question together. Today's readings were an easy pick. I am reading from the Old Testament from Exodus. I don't know about you, but I love Exodus. And I love the story that is told in Exodus and God being weaved in that story and how we see God at work in the exile and with the Israelites. And how much we can relate to the Israelites is something I also appreciate. So this story specifically, though, includes Moses. And for those of you who don't know, I have a special fondness for Moses and Moses' story and all of the milestones or the one-hit wonders of Moses' life that we get to hear about. We get to hear a little nugget of it today. So, of course, Exodus was the choice. So, a reading from Exodus chapter 24, verses 12 through 18. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there. And I will give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandments which I have written for their instruction." So Moses set out with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. To the elders he had said, "Wait here for us until we come to you again, for Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a dispute may go to them." Then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the seventh day, he called Moses out of the cloud. Now, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. So there's a lot of nuggets in this that I think are cool and worth noting, right? So first is, we know the story as part of Jesus getting the Moses getting the 10 Commandments, right? Moses goes up on the Mount of Sinai and gets these 10 Commandments, right? And we don't hear all 10 of the commandments, but we also hear about the cloud, Moses going up into the cloud. The thing that is notable, right, that we hear probably several other places, is someone was somewhere for 40 days and 40 nights. I think of the flood. I think of Jesus in the desert. That 40-day number is a number that, you know, naturally we get stuck on or are reminded of other stories. But what I love specifically about this story, about the 10 Commandments, is Moses goes up on a mountain. Now, this is where God has met people. This isn't the first time, and this is not the last time that God is going to call people on a mountain. Important things have happened on mountains, like Jesus praying, the Sermon on the Mount, which is the series we read for the last 3 weeks, the Sermon on the Mount, and the 10 Commandments. God meets people on mountains. And so in this meeting, in this mountain meeting, God is speaking a core set of values for the community that will help humanity in its relationship with God and with people. So the 10 Commandments' purpose isn't just to be a burden and a law and all these strict rules we have to follow, but it's freedom to love our neighbor and to love God. And so if the law doesn't make us right with God, right, what is our reason for obeying the law? Why do we obey the 10 Commandments now? And it's a freedom. It's a choice. We get to choose whether we follow the 10 Commandments or not. And what is the reason for doing that? If it isn't there to make God like us or love us, what's the reason for it? And I think we wrestle now, and when we teach the 10 Commandments or this experience of Moses going on a mountain, we talk to kids about why do we follow the rules? What happens when we don't, right? I think about like no running in the hallways of school. Why do we not run in the hallways? Well, because it keeps our friends safe, keeps people from falling. It gets everywhere from point A to point B in a safe fashion. Why do we follow the rules in the library? Well, if everybody was screaming at the top of their lungs, we couldn't read books, right? It could be distracting. So following rules are things that keep us safe. There are also things that, like whispering in libraries, helps us value and care for our neighbor who's probably reading in a corner somewhere. The law is for the good of our neighbors and ourselves. It keeps us safe in community and protects us. What about these 10 commandments, though? Why do you and I obey them? And how do we keep them today? How do we love our neighbor? How do we not bear false witness? How do we not covet what our neighbors have? The one that I always get stuck on is the false witness one. Like, how do we not bear false witness? How do we stop gossiping about people, right? How do we tell the truth and think of them in the best possible light? And I think about how we don't covet what people have. We are envious people of, I think society has taught us, right, to compare what we have with others and wanting what other people have. But it's important to remember that while it is challenging to remember these things, to keep the Sabbath day and to have God and no other gods, right? And not taking the Lord's name in vain and not bearing false witness and not murdering or stealing or all of these things, right? Some may be easier than others. This is not a burden, but it's a freedom. It's about helping us find freedom to live well with one another. So we have the freedom to follow God's law. We have the freedom to love God, and we have freedom to love our neighbors. But the thing about this story, this mountaintop moment, and how these instructions will help us live in community and love one another, it is also the glory of God in this story. Moses goes up on a mountain to meet God. And he stays there for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, he is called out of the cloud. And then he goes down the mountain, right? And shares these with people. So in this story, where is God moving, right? In these mountaintop moments. And I think we can all think about those mountaintop moments where we realize we're a part of something that is so much bigger than ourselves. And I think this is like that. The 10 Commandments are for something that is so much bigger than ourselves. It's for the body of Christ, right? And how Moses' example of this, right? How faithful Moses was to participate in something that is so much bigger than himself. And then to share that with others. So I'm going to leave you with a few questions that I read earlier that I'm going to leave you with is, what about the 10 Commandments? Why do we obey them? And how do you keep them today? What does that look like for you? So if you would like to read this text, or if you have feedback, let me start there. If you have feedback or thoughts on this text, I'd love to hear it. You can leave a comment. You can send us an email. You can leave it on the Facebook, whatever you'd like. Email us. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to read this text again, it's from Exodus 24, verses 12 through 18. We'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you think about the 10 Commandments. Till next time, see ya.